Hello, my name is John Kearns. Today I will be speaking with you about next generation firewalls and how they can benefit your company. At the end of this presentation, you will have learned what makes a next generation firewall different from a traditional firewall and how they can better secure your network. More specifically, I will discuss today's threat landscape, followed by the types of threats next generation firewalls can prevent, the control they will have over the network, and why your company needs a next generation firewall. It is becoming more and more difficult to maintain enterprise security as enterprises are migrating toward an internet-centric environment. Software as a service is becoming more prevalent. This is where companies outsource the software that is accessed through the internet and is maintained by a third party. The cloud is becoming more popular as well. Examples of this include Google Drive and iCloud by Apple. And more mobile devices are posing new threats every day as well. Traditional firewalls are simply not equipped to handle this change. New threats are emerging every day that target networks through social engineering, phishing emails, and now even mobile devices. Attackers use several different methods to infiltrate a network and steal information such as distributed denial of service attacks, spear phishing attacks, crypto lockers, and other advanced forms of malware.
A firewall at its most basic level controls traffic flow between a trusted network and an untrusted or public network. The most commonly deployed firewalls today are port-based firewalls, or some variation of this basic type of firewall. These firewalls are popular because they are relatively simple to operate and maintain, generally inexpensive, have good throughput, and have been the prevalent design for more than 2 decades now. In the rapid pace of the internet age, nearly 2 decades means that this basic technology behind port-based firewalls is medieval. In fact, network security is often likened to the Dark Ages. A network perimeter is analogous to the walls of a castle with a firewall controlling access, like a drawbridge. And like a drawbridge that is either up or down, a port-based firewall is limited to just 2 options for controlling network traffic: to allow or to block. Port-based firewalls use source and destination IP addresses and TCP and UDP port information to determine whether or not a packet should be allowed to pass between networks or network segments. The firewall inspects the first few bytes of the TCP header in an IP packet to determine the application protocol. For example, SMTP, which uses port 25, and HTTP, which uses port 80. Most firewalls are configured to allow traffic originating from the trusted network to pass through to the untrusted network, unless it's explicitly blocked by a rule. For example, the Simple Network Management Protocol, otherwise known as SNMP, might be explicitly blocked to prevent certain network information from being inadvertently transmitted to the internet. This would be accomplished by blocking UDP ports 161 and 162. Regardless of the source or destination IP address. Static port control is relatively easy. Stateful inspection firewalls address dynamic applications that use more than one well-defined port, such as FTP ports 20 and 21. When a computer or server on the trusted network originates a session with a computer or server on the untrusted network, a connection is established. On stateful packet inspection firewalls, a dynamic rule is temporarily created to allow responses or replies from the computer or server on the untrusted network. Otherwise, return traffic needs to be explicitly permitted, or access rules need to be manually created on the firewall, and this usually isn't practical. All of this works well as long as everyone plays by the rules. Unfortunately, the rules are more like guidelines, and not everyone using the internet is nice. The internet now accounts for the majority of network traversing enterprise networks. And it's not just web surfing. The internet has spawned a new generation of applications being accessed by network users for both personal and business use. Many of these applications help improve user and business productivity, while other applications consume large amounts of bandwidth, pose needless security risks, and increase business liabilities. For example, data leaks and compliance, both of which are addressed in the following sections, and many of these applications incorporate accessibility techniques such as non-standard ports, port hopping, and tunneling to evade traditional port-based firewalls. IT organizations have tried to compensate for deficiencies in traditional port-based firewalls by surrounding them with proxies, intrusion protection systems, URL filtering, and several other costly and complex devices, all of which are equally ineffective in today's application and threat landscape.
BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device. BYOD is an unstoppable force as nearly every employee owns some sort of a smartphone or a tablet that they use at work to fight boredom with their own games and applications. This opens the door to countless attack vectors that traditional firewalls are not equipped to handle. Attackers like to target employees via corporate email in attempts to infiltrate their network. They often mimic commonly accessed websites to trick employees into handing over personal information in order to unlock promotional deals or perhaps unlock a forgotten password. Once they get the information they need, they infiltrate.
Essential functional requirements for an effective next-generation firewall include the ability to identify applications regardless of port, protocol, evasive techniques, or SSL encryption before doing anything else. They need to provide visibility of and granular policy-based control over applications, including individual functions. They need to be able to accurately identify users and subsequently use identity information as an attribute for policy control. They should provide real-time protection against a wide array of threats, including those operating at the application layer. Next-generation firewalls need to be able to integrate, not just combine, traditional firewall and network intrusion prevention capabilities. And they must also be able to support multi-gigabit inline deployments with negligible performance degradation. Typical capabilities of traditional firewalls include packet filtering, network and port address translation, stateful inspection, and virtual private network support. Typical intrusion prevention capabilities include vulnerability and threat-basing signatures and heuristics. The key to next-generation firewalls is the ability to do everything a traditional firewall does with the advanced capabilities that combine innovative identification technologies, high performance, and additional foundational features to yield an enterprise-class solution. When facing modern threats, it is important to identify applications instead of ports. Today's malicious content is much smarter than it was years ago. It's even smarter than it was yesterday. Next-generation firewalls focus on application identification during traffic classification and remain scalable and intelligent and always on. Another outdated firewall method that has been solved by next-generation firewalls is the identification of IP addresses instead of users. Since most enterprises have moved to an internet-based platform, employees have access to their network from almost anywhere around the world. IP addresses are reassigned as they're moved from zone to zone, and network users are not always company employees. IP addresses are not as reliable a source as they once were, which is why user identification is now a very important aspect. Another aspect of traditional firewalls that needs to be revised is the inspection of packets. This has been a strong defense mechanism in the past, but is now more easily tricked by hackers, and so it has become important to analyze the content within the packet before determining whether the packet is dropped or forwarded. Employees use any application they desire and surf the web as if they're invincible. That is why these 3 revisions to packet inspection are imperative to modern network security.
Wireless bandwidth is often sucked up by unauthorized applications, and applications of high priority experience slow speeds due to low amounts of remaining bandwidth. Next generation firewalls have the ability to control the amount of bandwidth each application or device is able to consume, or which apps even receive bandwidth. They are even able to protect users' desktops by securing remote access and controlling program installations from USB keys or emails. Next generation firewalls have the power to stop BYOD in its tracks. Not only can they control bandwidth to these devices, but next gen firewalls can also determine if a device has been jailbroken, which would create numerous vulnerabilities to the network. They even have the ability to determine whether there has been any malicious traffic introduced or if any malicious traffic is attempting to be introduced to the network. They're also able to uncover any inappropriate data leakage happening outside of the network. As mentioned previously, they're able to control which apps can access the network and how bandwidth is consumed as well. Hackers are engineering malware that is smarter than your traditional firewall. Mobile devices are flooding enterprise networks, and more enterprises are revolving around the internet. Traditional firewalls no longer have what it takes to secure an enterprise network, and a secure network keeps a company in operation. Next generation firewalls are capable of protecting businesses from today's and tomorrow's threats.